Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending upon which part of the world you are joining this session from. We have some very interesting conversation lined up for you today. My name is Manoj Singh, and I manage Ramco's business in US and Europe. And the conversation that we have lined up for you today is all about how can you wire up, or in some cases, rewire your supply chain to meet the realities of this changing world, which, by the way, has changed and will change forever. What we have done is created a very integrated end-to-end and automated supply chain in partnership with AMP and Aero Exchange. What we are going to tell you today is what, why, and how of this supply chain solution that we have implemented. Now, before we get started, just as a basic hygiene, I know we have a lot of people joining from different parts of the world. If you have any questions during the course of this whole conversation, please send your questions in the comment section, and we will be able to take up those questions as and when they are relevant to the topic that we are discussing. So with that said, let me introduce to you all our today's guests. We have Wayne Mihailov, CEO of Airline MRO Parts, a visionary business leader who saw the opportunity in the aviation ecosystem to form Airline MRO Parts, AMP, and for the segment of supply chain inventory and process procurement process, and has presided over AMP's journey that has seen more than 10x in revenue growth in the last few years. My second guest is Albert Kozarek, President and CEO of Aero Exchange, a great friend and my partner in crime in implementing this solution at AMP. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I think I have a technical issue. I thought I was logging into the pre-screening of Maverick Top Gun 2. Is that tomorrow, Al? Is that?
No, you are right. You are very much in there. Yes, we can see Brad Pitt and all other great actors here.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be part of this at this critical stage of our industry. So thank you, Ramco team, for hosting this webinar, and Al for allowing me to speak alongside you. It's really appreciated.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Okay, so before we get into the details of the AMP business process itself, the business model, all the solutions that has been deployed at AMP, what I would like to do is take a few minutes to explain from our perspective what we are seeing as a trend in the industry, which is kind of the basis for why and what we are doing right now, right? So clearly, all of us, it's not a news to us that the demand has cratered, right? The whole commercial aviation specifically has gone down quite a bit, and they are right now operating at least in the US, 20% of their capacity from what it was in 2019. And as you can see from the picture from IATA, that depending upon who you ask, the recovery time could be anywhere from 1 to 4 years or 1 to 3 years, right? And while the commercial aviation is going through this kind of downturn right now, but we do see that it's not all gloom and doom. There are pockets of opportunities and the demand patterns that are emerging that were not envisioned earlier. For example, suddenly we are seeing the business aviation world has started to come back to life. And as a matter of fact, I believe they have come back almost 80 to 90% of what they were in 2019, which is a good sign. And I believe some of the demand from the commercial aviation is transitioning into the business aviation side of it. So overall demand is starting to come up a little bit, right? We are also seeing cargo business driven by the e-business or the e-commerce continuing to do pretty good in the market. We are also seeing that the helicopter segment, the special operators, and the defense segment continuing to charge along quite well as well. So it's a mix of uneven demand pattern that is starting to emerge, but still a lot of unknown remains, right? On the supply side, I would say, some of the metrics and the data that we see is that as per Aviation Week, there is 30 to 50% excess capacity across all the aerospace and defense manufacturing, and potentially a threat to the 20% of the lower tier suppliers that could go out of business. But at the same time, we are also getting another view of which is quite relevant is that given the number of aircraft that are parked by these major airlines, many of these aircraft may not see the light of the day and hence may be used for some of these parts that may come as a tsunami in the aviation ecosystem. So again, a little bit of surprising and unbalanced demand and supply picture that is starting to emerge in the industry. So maybe I want to take a small pause here and maybe talk to Wayne and Al to see if you have any perspective on how you are seeing the demand and supply emerging in the aviation industry. Maybe Wayne, we could start with you.
Sure, I'm happy to start. I think, look, guys, it's a really tough time for our industry, and I think we've talked about this the past couple of days. That our hearts break for the many businesses who will be forced to lay people off, or maybe even go under during this time due to this massive shock. That's very sad, but it happens in business, right? And like exercising a muscle, sometimes these shocks are necessary. We've kind of rested on our laurels as an industry in our supply chain. We do a lot of the same supply chain we did in 1988, and we still, for even small parts, we do send emails and we retype POs, and so there is an upside to this in that sometimes a shock is necessary to kind of make us rethink the way we look at processes and take advantage of some of the technologies that are out there. I mean, Al, your guys have been around for 2 decades. In the EDI world, really making Spec 2000 kind of come alive in a real way for a majority of the big players. And there's still, after 2 decades, there's a big chunk of our industry, technically unbelievable airlines, MROs, that haven't taken advantage of that. So in a way, maybe our industry needs a little bit of a shock to wake us up.
Al, what do you think?
I think Wayne's spot on. And I'm an optimist. I believe that global travel will resume to the pre-COVID time periods. I think people like to travel. They like experiences. They like to mix culture. We like to do business across borders, as long as that business is fair. And I see a resurgence towards the latter half of the decade, and that you will see strong growth. And as I look at this time, I think about the opportunity that is in front of us. There's a lull in demand. There's an opportunity to look at internal processes and the capabilities. And how can we amp up what we do so we can be competitive as we go into the future? Think about where aircraft design was 30 years ago. Ink and Mylar. You had people who were called computers that were doing the work that laptops are doing now. And as that design process moved forward, we came up with inventions of solid modeling, stress analysis workstations, Nastran, a lot of technologies that allow us to be better, not even to speak of the material science breakthroughs that we've seen. And then if you think about how the service delivery model happens after the airplane's designed and truly remarkable assets are created and injected into the market, our service delivery, the aircraft delivery, and then the reservation system becoming electronic, not nearly as sophisticated as the design processes that are used by the OEMs, but getting there. And then as we get farther and closer to the service delivery of putting passengers in seats, keeping the aircraft maintained is clearly a critical part of that. And we look at the technology opportunity, and we see lots of paper out on the shop floor. We see manual derivation of task cards. We see very little tracing of where the asset's been and taking intelligence to understand how to optimize the use of these very expensive assets. And so I see lots of opportunities. I see an opportunity for the industry to really come together over the next 24 to 36 months and push the envelope and get better. And I think that parrots a little bit about what Wayne is saying. The industry's coming back. I'm certain of that. And I think it's a chance for us to be ready and come out the other side much stronger than we are now.
Well said, Al and Wayne. And you're on the spot in the sense that, even some of the experts in the industry are saying the same thing. Use this time to wire up, rewire, and basically digitize your supply chain. And the more resilient you can make your supply chain, the better off you are going to be once everything is said and done, and when you come out at the other end of this whole situation. So I think supply chain resiliency is going to be the key going forward for a lot of players in this whole aviation ecosystem, right? And so the question then becomes, what does supply chain resiliency, what does this whole supply chain digitization mean, right? And that actually now nicely dovetails into what we together as a team have done at AMP, right? Which is all about bringing in as much automation in your processes as possible, trying to make this whole enterprise integration from your supplier to your customer. How do you integrate end to end in a very highly automated manner? How do you infuse intelligence through both algorithms and newer technologies and AI ML so that you do not rely on many number of people or the intelligence to do that, and be able to let AI, ML, and other machines do the lot of thinking and decision making. And of course, in the end, leading up all this to the situation or the process where you end in a near zero touch situation, whether it's order to cash or procure to pay. As much zero touch you can make, the more efficient and resilient you can make your supply chain. I think that's what it really means. And really kind of surprising that what we did in the last few years is exactly this, and suddenly it has so much of relevance in the today's world that we are living in. Okay, so with that said, before we actually get into why we did, how did we do it, the whole system aspect of it, I wanted to actually ask you, Wayne, to give our audience a brief introduction about AMP, because it's a very unique company that you have built from scratch, a very unique business model. There was a reason why you built this company and the kind of growth, the 10x growth that you have seen in the last few years. So do you want to give a quick overview of what and why of AMP itself?
Good question. Thanks, Manoj. So how did we start? Well, we started with, I'm a parts guy. So I always think of an airplane as just a bunch of spare parts flying in formation. And, whether you're an airline, you're an MRO, the pilots and the customers all want all the parts to be on the plane. They're really picky about that. So the question is, how do you get to 100%? And we kind of have two categories of parts, guys, that we deal with every day, right? You deal with the stocking and the restocking, whatever you want to call them. And then you talk about the non-routines, the work orders, include AOGs, all of that, right? And what you don't stock. And what occurred to us is kind of two things. There are a lot of great restocking solutions. There's a lot of brilliant people in our industry. I've had the honor of working with a lot of them who can come up with some great stocking models. And that's at outstations, that's at bases, that's at maintenance locations. They're pretty darn good at getting 98, 99% fill rate, especially on expendables, and even in some cases with really good technology on rotables. Kind of focusing on the expendable side, you find that you have a lot of turnaround time issues. Turnaround time being getting an aircraft out of a maintenance event, whether it's at a line station, at an airline, or it's at an MRO location. That airplane sitting on the ground is a bad thing, right? We want the airplane in the air with behinds in the seats, and we want to try to shorten that time up. And what we found is that that the restocking, spectacular performance on the non-routines, not as good. So then we started looking at, okay, so there's a big problem there. What is the difference? And what's kind of interesting to us was you basically have any given list of parts that you're going to install in the airplane, and you have something that's a 99.99% probability of it being installed, all the way down to this year versus a 0.001% chance. Through some sort of algorithm, we draw a line somewhere, and we say, okay, everything above this line we're going to stock, and everything below this line we're going to order for work order. So what is the difference between the part right below the line and the part right above the line? It's really negligible. And so that's kind of the interesting part of the problem is we've categorized something that really is a big difference on either side of that line. So we said, how do we solve this non-routine problem? And that's where we kind of really started focusing on this vision of make the world your warehouse. So if I've got a maintenance activity anywhere, I've got so much stocking parts in my warehouse. But you know what, guys? There's where parts all over the world in all these different warehouses. And are they really different than location number 2 of the same entity? Means it doesn't. The supply chain kind of ends in the ordering process when the dot matrix printer in the warehouse, right? You get the sound, and somebody's got to tear that off and go pick a part. If it's in your facility or it's somebody else's, does it really matter? Well, it matters if your supply chain process is kind of archaic and it's really slow. And so that's what we started realizing was driving a lot of the problem. And so to Manoj, your point around hyperautomation, we realized, wow, if we can do something around this would make a big difference for the accessing the parts in the other warehouses of the world. And what happens when you don't have that is you have, again, turnaround times that are very costly, to our clients. There are errors from hand typing and copy and pasting stuff. Inventory levels are too high. There's just so many costs, millions and millions of dollars in costs to every one of our clients that could clearly be targeted and where we could help improve it. So what did we look at? Well, we started looking at the lowest value parts, kind of automating that, procure to pay. So let's get expendables and consumables, which have the most orders, kind of have 80% of the purchase orders, but small dollar values and the same amount of overhead. So from an activity-based costing perspective, just begging for automation. So we kind of built a small niche on our Ramco coded platform, using all the capabilities, the amazing capabilities, been around for a long time with Aero Exchange. And we found that, not only did we use it just on a few parts, but some of the, start working our way up the tail a little bit, that with this, turning things around, we actually are able to bring more parts to the system. And so we kind of scaled it up. Ramco is shown to be incredibly scalable, as of course is Aero Exchange. And that allows us to do more volume without our cost scaling. So we built this out over a couple years, guys. And, we started with partnering on the front end with Aero Exchange on kind of the MR to PO process. And I'll talk about that shortly in a minute. That we fully automated that for our clients. And we add that into what we call our smart purchasing, which is our proprietary decision-making module. Not yet, guys, just hold on a second. Go back up a slide, please. Thank you. And so we put those together to try to really take that time from when the mechanic says he needs a part until that dot matrix printer prints out in some warehouse somewhere, either internal or external. We wanted to bring that time to close to zero as we could. And what we found is in implementing this is that we kind of went from days, right? It's usually 48, 72 hours, kind of for an MR to turn into a final PO. We skipped over hours, so we're doing it in minutes. And it's really been a big impact to our clients, and we're very, very happy about that. And those buying algorithms in our smart purchasing, which I'll talk about in just a second, have proved to be extremely effective. And our foundational partnering with Aero Exchange has made that the integration into any major ERP for our clients really easy. So we've done with 4 ERPs so far, more to come, and it makes it such an easy bolt-on that our clients have been amazed at how easy this automation is to put in place. So now the next slide, guys. So again, think about the $13 part here, not the IDG, not the APU, not the landing gear, the $13 part. Can we go to the next slide, please? As soon as that slide pulls up, the next one is kind of the traditional supply chain model, right? So there's planning, there's MRs, and then you kind of have that center column of kind of emails, phones, faxes, that type of thing, and then all to a bunch of different suppliers. And on the expendable side, we typically see 400 to 500 suppliers from our clients that they're trying to manage with accounts, with credit lines, with statement of accounts, all the reconciliations, all of that. Okay, so does it make sense to do this level of complexity for the $13 part? And again, the small dollar value parts, we all know it's kind of 80% of the purchasing volume. So that's what we, Manoj, kind of tackled, set out to tackle. And so we did that. And I'll give you a super quick overview on the next slide, guys, of what we do. And again, this is being enabled by Aero Exchange and Ramco, but we basically tap into our client's ERP system, and we snag that MR as soon as it's created. we take and kind of bypass one of the biggest offenders of supply chain TAT, because we take that out, we bring it into our market module, okay, and we see we can automate immediately. And then that turns back into a purchase order and all the great Aero exchange processes. And so I don't want to go in great detail here, but again, our clients have gone from roughly a 2-day turnaround time on this to minutes. Okay.
Yeah. I think this whole days to minutes, and I think another very interesting point that you made, Wayne, which is very interesting, because typically people, do not focus as much on this long tail, right? Because these 13-cent parts, 10-cent parts, and the cost of procurement sometimes overweighs, and then you try to kind of stock a lot of those. Whereas with the level of automation and integration, you could now actually use it to go to what you call as the world as the warehouse, right? That's beautiful. In fact, that's a good segue to Aero Exchange, because the power of Aero Exchange is all about network. Network is the world, and Aero Exchange powers that and taps into this world of warehouses, right? So maybe this would be a good segue for Al, you to provide a quick overview of Aero Exchange, what you do in general, and then we'll talk about AMP and RAMP implementation.
Thank you, Manoj, and thank you, Wayne. So I'm delighted to tell you that Aero Exchange is celebrating our 20th year of operation since our founding in 2000. From the beginning, we've continued to build aviation's unbiased and most comprehensive supply chain network infrastructure, enabling a paperless supply chain. Paperless, real-time. Think of Aero Exchange like connective tissue. We're proud to have been, could you go back a slide, please? Thank you. We're proud to have been founded and owned by 13 large, prestigious global airlines. And this ownership structure has stood the test of time. Like a railroad, this infrastructure provides a utility, and it's the tracks the industry rides upon to connect to each other efficiently and in real time. It was about 10 months ago, 12 months ago, Wayne came to me with a problem to solve. And Wayne described it as, hey, I see these very low value item parts that require a lot of manual processing. And I've got a pretty good idea on how to construct the logic so that I can manage not just part number quantity, but I can manage trace code, condition, and fully meet the requirements of the client. And I think I know how to do that. The big problem for me is how can I get the broad supply chain to participate seamlessly and in real time? When we started the process, Wayne said, hey, when I let loose a requisition, I want price and lead time and trace and condition within the first 15 minutes of clock time. And so we were delighted to work with Wayne on this problem, and using Aero Exchange's infrastructure, where sellers can post catalogs that have unique pricing to AMP that no one else can see, and real-time connection to those suppliers that shows us in that moment in time how much inventory is in their store, and the communication of this new concept Wayne came up with on ranking and stacking trace code to establish the quality requirement of the client. It became an opportunity for Aero Exchange to provide that connective tissue at a cost point that Wayne could realize his vision. Early on, Aero Exchange has believed that supply chain efficiency overall in this industry would be paced by the abilities of buyers and sellers to connect seamlessly with unmatched security and in real time. The network that we've created, the security elements are critical. At Aero Exchange, we protect your data. It is your data. It is not anybody else's data. It is a confidential relationship between trade partners. We are a trusted partner with you in protecting your information and preserving the fair level playing field and establishing economics that are neutral and unbiased to all sellers. So we had the privilege to partner with Wayne and his very talented team and have created what I think is a fairly exciting a solution that Wayne is going to get into more of the details. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Manoj.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Al. I think our partnership, Ramco and Aero Exchange, also goes back almost 4 or 5 years now. And I think it has been a wonderful experience. We have multiple customers that we have worked together, ranging from airlines to MROs to parts suppliers. And I think it has been a great journey, because we believe that, the value gets created when you go across the boundaries of the organization, right?
Yeah.
So I think together, in partnership with Al, and I think what Wayne is trying to do, this is tremendous value that I think we are creating in this whole ecosystem. So I think we are 25 minutes into the webinar. I just wanted to see if any questions out there from the audience that might be worth taking. So we have folks supporting us from the backstage, and if you believe there are some questions, then we can potentially take it. Okay. We have a question from Heliodoro Noah. One of the big questions is how the digital solution can identify if parts is per or post SB and how many to be in stock. Okay, very good question. Wayne or Al, do you want to take a crack at it? Or
Wayne, I suggest that you talk about part config, and then I can talk about how we deliver that information to you.
Perfect. Look, pre or post service bulletin is more of a roadable question. And we do have some level of penetration in the roadable space, but very little at this point. I mean, where we really bring value in this hyper automation is in more of a kind of commoditized, new part. So this is a great question, and we have some thoughts and developments being built on the roadable side, but nothing that we do today. This is really about the larger process and not so much individual part selection as it is, guys, thinking about the full process. Again, from the time a mechanic determines they need a part until that dot matrix printer prints in somebody's warehouse, what's that process look like? And again, where we get the biggest value of automation today, the lowest hanging fruit is on the expendable side. So we don't have, I would say, a canned solution for that yet. That is, anytime we deal with service bulletins on roadables, we still deal with that manually.
And I can tell you one thing that from the service bulletin perspective, there is the whole notion of course, effectivity of these SBs, right, which may be current to any time in the future that might have to be made effective. And in the system like Ramco, you can actually track the effectivity in a way that if it is something that has to be done in the future date, then you can plan the material or the parts required for those based on that effectivity. And then you can actually start planning based on that maintenance plan and then the material plan. And then you can pass that information through Aero Exchange to suppliers if those are something that are procured from suppliers, and they could be ready from the supply chain perspective.
And if I could add to that, so in this C&E solution that we supported Wayne with, Wayne leveraged infrastructure that surrounds a platform that we fielded at Aero Exchange called Aero Buy. And the Aero Buy platform supports C&E and roadables. And I'm excited to advise that Aero Exchange is deploying the digital 8130 Form 1 that was approved by the ATA probably 7 years ago. Creating the XML document structure to capture Form 1 is interesting, not terribly difficult. Structuring block 13, where all of the juices around what is the configuration of that part, what's its completion record in terms of SB, EA, EO incorporation. And so where infrastructure is maturing so that you can tell exactly where the parts have been. The Aero Exchange product platform has a product called Aero Buy shown here on the left, where we handle procure to pay. We have a fully touchless automated consignment solution that listens to demand signals coming off of the maintenance floor, automatically triggers a replenishment with change of ownership occurring at the point of consumption. We have a product called Aero AOG, which allows airlines to share with each other AOG recovery assets, and facilitates electronic loans and borrows. We have a platform for repair management where the repair asset is going to a repair vendor, and we light up all the lights that let you see when that asset's received, when it's torn down. We send you shop finding report. We allow you to interpret the quotation. You're able to track and see when the work is done. And most importantly, you see a completion record of what work was actually performed on that asset when it's returned back to you and received into your own store. We have another platform called Aero Component, which manages pooling. And in the pooling world, of course, you want to know in the exchange asset, what is the configuration of that asset, the time and cycle, the pedigree. We support that now, and that infrastructure has been available since 2005. And so if you think about the ecosystem of supply chain and the infrastructure, you need connectivity. We think about you need ecosystem support for purchasing, repair, pool exchange, consignment, loans and borrows. And AeroChange provides that fabric so that you can lean on that connective tissue as you build the automation platform, exactly the way Wayne has done in this C&E area. The logic, how you make the selection, is happening in this advanced analytics module that Wayne built. He relied on the AeroChange infrastructure to make the connections work and get all the data he needed securely and accurately so the models can work. And so I think it's a terrific question, and I'm really thankful you brought it forward.
Okay, so there's one more question that we had. Yes. Seems like the question is for you, Wayne.
Okay, yeah, I can see it. You want me to just, so the question is, what happens if an MR is canceled or amended due to an entry error? Can the process be stopped so as not to incur unrequired materials? That's a great question. The answer is yes, if you're really, really fast. Look, what we're trying to do is do this in seconds, right, and not days. And so that is actually a question that challenged us about, or with which we were challenged about 6 months ago. And the answer is this: automation shines a really bright flashlight in a dark room. And so while slow process times can cover up with a lot of errors, that's not really the right answer. So it's the difference kind of between quality assurance and quality control, right? You'd rather build the car right up front rather than just have somebody catch the errors and set it back through reproduction. Automation absolutely highlights those problems, and we've had that. And we've had cases where you automate and you get garbage in, garbage out. However, an insightful client will tell you this. So one of our client CEOs in one of our quarterly review meetings was looking at our data and had reviewed our data, and he said, "I love what you've done in terms of automating my supply chain, and that's really interesting. So, but I think I get more value out of the data you bring me than I do from the actual automation." And it was really interesting. We hadn't really thought that through that heavily. But we do have a data warehouse. We dump every transaction in, and we keep that. We provide that data to our clients. And so, we were able to show, so you have over-ordering, understood, happens everywhere. Where are you getting over-ordering? Because we're getting the MR, so we can track to the MR. So maybe that MR is in hangar 3 at our line station in Dallas, and that line station shift 3. It's only when this manager is on or this supervisor is on that we're getting that overbuy. And so it allows for corrective behavior and more of a quality assurance model far upstream of what we're doing. Because we're doing that automation, and we have the data to shine that light into the dark room and show where some of those process flaws are. So it sounds counterintuitive. I understand that, because you'd like time to fix errors, but the automation, it doesn't really allow that, because hopefully it's super quick. But what it does do is give you the data to go fix those errors before they happen.
Yeah, I think you rightly said, shines the light on what potentially the major problem might be upstream into the whole process itself, and maybe go and fix it over there rather than stopping the automation and the speed that comes with it. Okay, great. Maybe we can move on with our conversation here. We talked about AM, the business model. We have also seen the overall breadth of offerings from Aero Exchange. Maybe we could also spend some time now putting these pieces together, right? How Ramco, Aero Exchange enable this whole end-to-end integration and automation that we have talked about. So maybe, Wayne, I will maybe let you start, and then I can also pitch in terms of what is the solution that we have deployed at AMP. So a slide can come. Yeah, perfect. Yes.
Okay, great. So you remember, guys, that kind of our noted our goal was to make the world your warehouse, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. We have our own inventories, obviously, but even the best distributors will typically cover 20% or whatever of a total consumption. And again, knowing that the pilots and passengers all want 100% of the parts on their planes, we have to figure out a solution to do that. And so, especially focused on the non-routines, we really have to go out to the world. So this applies to, we found that this automation, again, applies to a lot more than just the little part of the tail. We're not talking about overcoming huge programs and the massive, we're talking about still the tail, but maybe further up the tail than we thought it would. This is, by the way, enabled by, we brought Mike James aboard to be our Vice President of Supplier Alliances, and he's really kind of developed our supplier base into what we call our Digital Alliance Supplier Network. And we rate our suppliers not just on traditional tiering, but more on their level of integration. We track, again, with a data warehouse daily, how's their on-time and full percentage, how's their quote response time, how they honoring the gates, that when it says it has this trace or this lead time, it's being honored, et cetera, et cetera. That's how we rate our suppliers. That puts the suppliers kind of on a level playing field, which they've really loved, right? And so, that's been a big driver, is you've got to basically take that connective tissue of Aero Exchange and you've got to blow it out across the entire spectrum, again, from the time the mechanic needs the part until that dot matrix printer goes out. That being said, I really appreciate our partnership with Aero Exchange and Ramco. Our business needs, as you guys can see, we're very unique. Ramco was the only player that we found, as from ERP perspective, that showed the scalability, the flexibility to enable our innovation. Ramco built our proprietary smart purchasing automation and our automated source selection, which allows that MR to just flow and immediately get out to, if we don't have it in our inventory, get out, was huge for us. So just couldn't imagine two better partners to go do that. And so again, it's something we're not stocking. It allows us to instantaneously order the part, which is what this slide is showing.
So I think thanks pretty useful. As you can see, I can see something here. So as you can see, I talked a little bit about this because we truly believed that what we did together with you, and you're right that we did not have in the beginning some pieces of the puzzle of the solution, but I think with you working and expanding with the Aero Exchange, I think this whole end-to-end automation is something that unique that we build, which takes all the way from MR to the PO creation within AMP, and then supplier selection, and then based on the business logic that you have built, and then sending those POs to supplier. They're shipping it back directly sometimes to you or sometimes directly to your end customers, and the whole receipt and the invoicing process, pretty much order to cash process automated. It's truly unbelievable what we have done together with Aero Exchange. And I believe, Al, from the Aero Exchange perspective, we have taken this whole notion of Aero buy, right, on both the buy and sell side to the hilt. I don't know if you have something to say about the way we have used Aero buy on both sides of this equation.
Yeah, thank you, Manoj. I think it's always helpful when the system providers, the M&E players and the ERP players understand Aero Exchange, help work with us to communicate what we've concluded to be some best practice in supply chain workflow, and then build out-of-the-box connectors that makes it easy for customers to connect into the Aero Exchange network. Ramco has done an excellent job. They connect to Aero Exchange using XML, communicated over a secure HTTP channel or a web service channel. It's real-time, it's fast, it's accurate, it's scalable. And so in the old days of Spec 2000, we struggled to get a PO document, which was called an S1 book back in the 80s. And it was about 42 characters was the limit. Today, we're sending the PO We're also sending through XML document attachments and a lot of rich information that's necessary to be able to put that part onto the airplane. And Ramco's been a good partner with us on this, and our journey is coming on almost 10 years of work. And we're continuing to develop and explore more supply chain opportunities throughout the ecosystem.
Great. Thanks, Al. And, so maybe other point that I do want to mention before we move on to the topic of the solution that we have together built is, I know there's a vision that, Wayne, that you had when this whole process or journey was started in terms of the business benefits that you are envisioning from this whole solution, because that translates into your tying to a business model of what you're trying to achieve. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the growth and the business benefits that you have achieved so far from this solution and where you are heading with that.
Sure, be happy to. Thank you. And I will say, to back up Al's point, when we did go look at, for everybody out there looking for ERPs, Ramco was the only provider that we found that was looking across not just the S1 book and PO placement, but looking at that entire procurement to pay and using all the amazing power of the Aero Exchange platform, using that connective tissue. And that's why we chose, so just really important for everybody to understand how important it is to go all the way down that chain and how much effort and development Ramco has put in. So what have our clients seen? Again, thank you for the question from David, because I didn't put that in here. I wasn't going to talk about it, but they have seen the benefit of our daily reports, weekly reports, talking about over ordering, talking about putting the delivery requirements way far before there actually were. We're able to look upstream and provide feedback there. But most importantly, again, as you're looking at that full process from the time the mechanic says need the part until that printer prints out for somebody to go pick the part, that's a days and days process, right? And sometimes those parts, minutes matter and parts are days away. And if you're taking days just to take an MR and get it turned into a PO on a $13 part, right? That's kind of nonsensical. So they've really seen huge benefits on improving that days to minutes, especially if you start talking about maintenance events where you're ordering work order parts constantly throughout the process. If every one of those is adding on 48 to 72 hours just to order, and instead it happens in 48 minutes instead of 48 hours, start adding those up. And we all know that every day an airplane sits around, it's 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever it is, opportunity cost to the airline. So that's been the biggest improvement for our clients. And what have we seen? How we've done that is kind of 80+% MR to POs are automated. We want to get to 90+%, 95%, or wherever we go there. We've got about 84% of our POs requested are automated through a supplier auto selection. That's of our outsourced, so not within our inventory, but we go outside of it. We're continuing to improve that every day. Again, that's our smart purchasing technology. And the whole point of that, real quick, is to buy just like the rest of us buy. If you're buying something off of eBay, you look at the seller. You look at how their ratings are. And in this case, we have our own ratings because we track their on time in full every day. Do they honor the contract pricing? Are they honoring their lead times? Does the tray show up right? Where are they in kind of Mike James's platinum, gold, silver levels? Are they fully integrated? Are they people that we know we're going to take in our purchase order without error and automatically turn it into a sales order that prints out in their warehouse? So it's not sitting around waiting for Sarah to get back from lunch. And so these are the levels, the way we rate our suppliers, and that supplier auto selection takes all those into account. We're getting our goods receipt automated, our invoices automated. We're matching all that stuff for automated payments. We're basically trying to do a zero-touch process for these lower value parts. And so it's allowed not just that kind of MR to PO, but all the way through to the pay cycle, or really through remittance, is we're making all of that automated. And Ramco and Aero Exchange have made that happen for us.
And you know what, the challenge that comes with this level of automation, of course, the business benefits are mentioned on these slides. But I think someone had asked this question, that the challenge of what if something goes wrong, right? And of course, a due diligence and analysis has to be done, a root cause of where the problem is. Sometimes that shines a light in terms of the problems that might be upstream. But I must also tell you that as part of this whole automation, we have built this whole error management process so that if there are any errors that get thrown in, the right people are notified of those errors. If there's a technical error, then immediately there is an action item that is done and those are resolved. If there are business errors, then the right people in the business are notified of those errors, and there may be some business level changes that have to be done, some sort of approvals in some cases that have to be done, right? So all these notifications, alerts, and notifications are part of the overall automation that we have built in the system, right? So that's important to note here.
Yeah.
Great point.
Manoj, I saw a question from Topher come up. And the question was, has there been any work on the invoice side in terms of sending invoice data to an ERP? And I'm absolutely delighted to address that question. The answer is yes. Aero Exchange is a messaging and translation engine that will allow you to connect any system to any system. We communicate invoice, and if there's with shipment in the system, we do a two-way match. If the trade partner is connected for receipt, we do a three-way match before we let that invoice flow to the buyer. What that does is it gives the seller instant feedback whether there's an issue with the invoice and streamlines the invoicing workflow. We communicate in legacy Spec 2000. The invoice, the process to acknowledge an invoice, the process to amend an invoice, it all happens through EDI. And in addition to those transactions, we support Spec 2000. We support X12 in the various flavors, 3040, 4030, and so on. And we support the XML version, CXML, and variants of that. And it allows you to have one message broker connecting you to your trade partners. So you send a format to me and you don't have to change your system. I convert that format to what the consumer of that message can read successfully. And after they successfully read it, I send you acknowledgement that the customer has read your message and it's good to go. It gives you that level of assuredness that lets the process become much more efficient. And that's some of the things that Wayne has been working and developing that have made the messaging near perfect, and that allowing the automated workflows to operate.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
we couldn't do it. We couldn't do what we do without that. And I want to highlight something that Al said that I got to be honest, I'm shocked that more people don't take advantage of. The three-way match or even a two-way match is so important in financial reconciliation. Guys, look, when you start automating supply chain, you get your effectiveness out of the order placement, you get your efficiencies out of the reconciliation. There's a huge amount of manpower that goes in to matching one invoice versus purchase orders. You know what's really good at matching numbers? Yeah, computers. And so not only do you have your own, we have our own system built by Ramco that does that. We do that on the front side with Aero Exchange. And the beauty of that is Al's team, they're a traffic cop. They're an independent third party. They're standing out there as connective tissue, not preferring anyone. And I love that. And so if we're wrong, Al's the first one to say, no, guys, that was in the PO. The system says that, not Al himself, obviously. Or the same thing with Supplier. If they're sending us an invoice that's different than what they agreed to on the purchase order, that independent traffic cop in Aero Exchange kicks it back and says, guys, this is not what you're agreed to on the purchase order. And I think that the industry not taking advantage of that is kind of a travesty. This is no-brainer land stuff. So great question, and something that we couldn't do without, to be honest.
Great. And I must say that I think, while in this particular instance, one aspect of the integration is used Aero Buy, right? That's the primary on both sell and buy side. But, there are multiple other different types of connectors that Aero Exchange brings to the table that, that Al talked about. And at least for 4 of those, Aero Buy, Aero Repair, Aero Component, and Aero Consignment, these are the 4 very big connectors that between Aero Exchange and Ramco that we have built, and given the breadth of the common customers we have from airlines to MROs to parts sales, I think one or the other or many of these connectors get used in the overall ecosystem. So very thankful to Al for working with us in helping build those connectors, right?
Thank you.
So I think we are going to be running out of time here, but we have a few more minutes. I wanted to touch upon one more talk, So we talked about what we have done so far, right? I think it's also important to talk about the future, right? Where are we heading with this? And when you brought up a very important point, there are multiple different points in your overall solution, in your process and the solution, where the real hyper automation exists, right? One is, of course, when the PO comes from your customers and then kind of flipped around through the, and then there's a whole supplier selection logic that you have built into the process that's very unique to you guys, and that does a great job. But we also believe that I think you also mentioned at some point of time that I think there is always some way to automate and infuse intelligence into a process. There is no end to it. And I believe that with the AI ML coming into a full swing and Ramco fully adopting the AI ML engine in our overall solution footprint, these are some of the areas, for example, the flipping, the use of AIML to come up with the vendor recommendations, taking into account all the historical data with respect to the vendor, the supplier performance, availability information, and then being able to generate the recommendations as a step number one. And if you take it further, then if you have a situation where some sort of multiple vendor list comes from that whole automation process, and a selection has to be done based on RFQ process, then system can actually take it to further to the whole RFQ process. And once the response comes back, the whole code comparison, and finally presents to you one or two final to the whole process of automation, which vendor to go with, right? Is huge in terms of what automation can do. So from our perspective, at least from a systems perspective, that's where we want to go. That's where we are going. But I think we want to work with you when an Aero Exchange to be able to enable this hyper automation, right?
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think that we said this already, but it's worth saying again, guys. Our industry is surprisingly behind when it talks about automated processing and e-commerce. We have literal rocket scientists who work in our industry. I think Al and others, but literal rocket scientists, guys, and we do an amazing job of moving people with unbelievable safety records from thousands of miles in just hours, incredibly safely and reliably. Unbelievable level of competency, and as Al noted, you kind of fall down that chain as we go. And so we've really got to get to a place where, especially on, again, small value parts, that's the low-hanging fruit, guys. We'll grab that, and there's rotables to go and repairables and everything else. But look, having artificial intelligence, machine learning built into it, something we're designing already as we move forward into better levels of automation. But it's neat for now at COVID-19. It's needed post-COVID-19. It'll be needed for COVID-20 or whatever else caused the world great anxiety. It's something we've just got to be better at. And look, this whole, what you're talking about, Manoj, the machine learning, artificial intelligence, it's not just the future. It's just not the distant future anymore. Guys, we need to
here. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this again takes us back to where we started, right? Why are we doing this? I think there is a lot of automation, integration, and I think the industry and Ramco and Aero Exchange, AMP, we all have been doing, but we truly believe that what we have done is almost like a showcase as well as a relevant solution to this whole post-COVID world that we are all going to live in, right? So I know there are a lot of other questions streaming in here, but I'm not sure if we're going to have time to take all these questions. Maybe one more we take here before we try to wrap it up. So this question is for you, Wayne, but why don't you just read through it and then we can collectively answer.
Great. And Janesh, thank you for your question. So the optimal demand planning, guys, obviously, and I think is super important. And usually when you talk about that, it's around restocking parts. We've gotten better at that as an industry over time. We have room to improve for sure. That's one area when you're automated downstream and you're providing that feedback, all that data back upstream. it just really improves that optimal demand planning, right? There's no question. In terms of the quality transparency, guys, that is really, really important. And one of the ways that it's most important, especially on the expendable side, is trace. And Al alluded to it, and we've had suppliers jumping on board with this. But we developed a kind of a hierarchical trace code to try to help the industry automate some of this. We've got great responses. I think we have kind of 80%, 90% of our suppliers have incorporated that into their catalogs, which has really allowed the process to be automated. So that's that quality, transparency piece. And then the last piece, I'll answer the second part of your question about contracts. Very important, guys. And anytime you have any sort of machine learning or an automated source selection, you're sending that to any type of contracted vendor. You're sending that part, pursuing availability. You don't have the parts already as surplus at that same vendor. We look at their system, make sure they're not ordering a part that's already out there. Looking at lead times. Got to pass some gates, but almost everything that goes in a contracted part price goes to the contracted vendor.
Good. Okay, so I think we are coming very close to the end of this whole session. So, I know we are not going to be able to answer all the questions, but I do want to thank Wayne and Al for very insightful conversation today. And I hope, and I'm sure all of us are going to receive a lot more questions and follow-up discussions on this topic. So we hopefully will get back again in one of these similar sessions down the road to show the development that we have done. And any last words, Wayne or Al, that you might want to actually say before we try to close this session?
Sure. Thank you, Manoj and Wayne, for participating. I really appreciate the invitation. My view is that I believe as an industry, we have the talent. I believe we have the skills and the resources to be truly great in supply chain. I look forward to the day when the automobile supply chain experts come to the aviation sector for lessons on how to handle low volume manufacturing and how to do it effectively and efficiently. I think some of the problems that they solve is the high volume stuff. It's a little bit easier. They've got deep penetration of EDI automation. We have the talent to go beyond what they're doing and be more efficient and be less asset intensive, that will drive better return on investment to both the airlines and the suppliers. And I'm excited to be part of this journey. And I thank all of you who are on this journey with us. And we look forward to continuing to improve as we go forward. Thank you.
Well said, Al. Guys, look, what's happening right now in aviation is pretty tough. And let's not fool ourselves. It's going to get tougher. That's going to mean some personnel changes. And look, but by embracing some of this automation, we're able to, rather than just saying cut costs, let's increase value. And let's take folks and let's put them into higher value activities, which we can do without just laying people off and going archaic and neutron jack on everybody, right? Let's use these types of automation tools, somebody else's, whatever, to help our industry. Let's move our whole industry forward. I would just say that, again, this automation is overdue on the supply chain side and many other areas, guys. Let's not worry about poking each other for right now. Let's move forward as an industry. So I would encourage all my aviation brothers and sisters to take a page from the book of my leatherneck friends. And look, it's a dangerous business environment out there. So run toward the danger, run through the fire, and conquer. Thank you guys for taking the time to hang out with us today.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.
Automation is going to be driving a lot of value. I think that's very clearly visible. And hopefully everybody on this call, we're able to get some nuggets out of this whole conversations. If you have any other further questions, you can send email to contact@ramco.com. And thank you again very much for joining, and have a blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.